Hello, everyone. Welcome to Deep Dive into the Archive, where this week we're diving into Pink Moon by Nick Drake. This is his final album, released in 1972.
This is his third and final album. There are plenty of albums out there where you can just pick them up and listen to them out of context. Like a Taylor Swift album, I can just pick up and listen to it. I don't need to know what Taylor Swift was going through at the time. This is an album that requires context. Nick Drake, in his time, was an unknown artist despite his talent and skill. He loved making music. Apparently some of his happiest times were when he was making music, but he wanted to make a living off of making music, but nobody really knew him. It's not easy being a musician, especially when you're not making money. He was depressed while creating this album, and you can certainly see that. You can pull that from the lyrics of this album. Nick Drake unfortunately died about 2 years after making this album from an overdose of antidepressants. It was ruled as a suicide, which is very unfortunate. Mental health PSA: if you're struggling, talk to someone, get help. After that bright and cheery introduction, we can talk about this. So Nick Drake, he's a British folk singer-songwriter. All of the music on this album was done by him, except for a piano overdub on the bridge of the title track, Pink Moon. But the rest is just Nick Drake, his lyrics, and his guitar. It's a very personal record.
I have to say, the lyrics on this album are often very simple, but very poetic at the same time. A lot of songs might just have a couple lines in them on this record, but those lines are very impactful and very beautifully written. You have the opening track, Pink Moon, which it has only a couple lines of lyrics, and I think that's kind of the strength of this record, is how simple it is while being very well written, well put. It kind of just allows you to get absorbed into it very easily.
A pink moon is a type of moon. It's a type of full moon. It's rare. And the pink moon is a symbol. It seems to be representing Drake's mental deterioration, his mental state, and how it's inevitable, it seems. One of the verses, I saw it written and I saw it say, a pink moon is on its way and none of you stand so tall, pink moon gonna get ye all. Where it seems that this mental deterioration he feels will happen to everybody, and he's kind of not alone. Kind of a sad way of looking at life, I guess.
This album as a whole, I think, is really strengthened by Nick's very delicate vocals, I'd say. They're very just gentle. It's very easy to listen to, I guess. He just has a very unique voice, and it helps the emotional impact of these songs a ton.
The next track, Place to Be, seemingly about how the world is less hopeful as you grow older. The world kind of loses its color. There's a line, I was green, greener than the hill, or flowers grew in the sunstone still, which green meaning new. So when he was a child, everything was bright. The grass was green, the flowers grew, and the sun shone. And now that he's older, it's all grayed out and also just very depressing.
This is probably my favorite track on the record. I kind of took the lyrics to be less about his change mentally as he grew up, and more just the change that occurred as he became depressed. The world becomes a lot less vibrant and interesting as you crawl further down this depressive mental state. I also love the guitar work on this track. It matches his vocals very well. It's very gentle. I think that really does a good job of matching the tone that this track sets.
I want to go on a brief aside here. For albums that are very emotionally potent, the instrumentation has to be kind of perfect to convey the emotions that you're trying to convey. Mount Eerie's A Crow Looked at Me is an example of an album that does that incredibly well. And I think that is the case for pretty much this entire album, how soft and gentle all the guitars are. There's still beauty in them, which I think is really complements the lyrics quite well.
As the next track, we have Road. I definitely love, again, the instrumentation. It's very stripped back on this track. It just matches Nick's vocals incredibly well.
For Road, personally, this is probably one of my least favorite tracks. It's just that the lyrics here, they're kind of out of place on the rest of the album. He's comparing, I guess, his pessimism to other people's optimism, but it's very short in that way. On other tracks, there's some symbolism and some really nice poetry, but I feel that this track is kind of lacking. It's definitely still like a nice track, but it's probably one of my least favorite off the album.
I disagree quite a bit. I think the way that he puts this idea out here so simply, I think really complements the track and the way he presents everything. I feel like his lyrics just work very well in their simplicity. After that, we got Which Will.
On this track, Drake, he seems to be questioning someone. We're not really sure who. It could be a friend, a lover, or the listener themselves. But whoever he's talking to, he kind of arrives at the conclusion that this person has a choice, and when they make that choice, they're not going to choose Nick. He feels unwanted, and nobody should have to feel that way. The guitars on this track are great. They feel more airy on this track, I guess.
After that, we have Horn, which is a purely instrumental track. Very delicate, beautiful instrumentation on here. It's very slow-paced. I think it works well as kind of a little break.
I really like how solemn the guitar sounds on this track. It says a lot without saying anything.
And after that, we have the longest track on the album, Things Behind the Sun. I'd say this is also one of my favorite tracks on the record.
Yeah, this is the longest track on the record. I say longest, it's just under 4 minutes. Lots of these tracks are only a couple minutes long. It's a very short album. Short and sweet in a way. Bittersweet, perhaps, is a better word. So on this track, he's seemingly feeling that people are only smiling for themselves and they're not actually happy. And he feels like his time is being wasted and wiled away by these people because they're all kind of just like fake. And also, I think he feels like nobody wants to listen to him, hear his music. And again, going back to that feeling unwanted, unloved.
You have lines, please be aware of them that stare, they'll only smile to see you while your time away. I love how a lot of these lines kind of flow. They're very poetic. You hear them and you're like, wow, this is incredibly well put and beautiful.
I want to give a shout out to the outro to this track. The verse, about the farmers and the fun, and the things behind the sun, and the people around your head who say everything's been said, and the movement in your brain sends you out into the rain. The rain is definitely a symbol here. You can definitely argue as to what the symbol is, but usually rain is associated with sadness and depression and stuff like that, where lots of people are just like looking to the sun for, brightness and inspiration and stuff like that. But the sun is kind of temporary, and Nick is seeing behind the sun, and there's kind of just there's darkness and depression there.
After that track, we get No. This is my personal least favorite track on the record. This is probably the only track I actively don't enjoy on this album. It features kind of this like very slow kind of plodding guitar riff along with Nick humming along for a majority of the song, and it just takes me out of the record. It just feels very off-putting. Although I do really like the very short verse. It's very simple, and I think this says a lot. You know that I love you, you know I don't care, you know that I see you, you know I'm not there. They're very depressing lyrics, but yeah, instrumentally I just don't like this track.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. Instrumentally, I kind of like the stuttering guitar. I like that aspect, although I will agree with the humming. I'm not the biggest fan. I kind of wish that the track was maybe just instrumental or had ended a bit sooner. But as you said with the lyrics, they carry a lot of weight to them.
Then after that, we got Parasite. Parasite, the title, I guess, describes the song pretty well. It's essentially about how Nick feels like a parasite as he goes about his life in town. It's a very simple I guess concept for the track, but I think it conveys a lot about how Nick feels about himself within society.
It's perhaps my favorite track off the album. There's a lot going on here with symbolism, but the parasite, the chorus where he's saying, take a look, you may see me on the ground, for I am the parasite of this town. The chorus repeats in a similar fashion, changes up the words a little bit, but just that feeling of comparing yourself to a parasite, that is, his like sense of self-worth is just so low, and it's really like sad to see that how he feels that way about himself. I'm sure that is not actually the case. Nick is feeling like the town would rather they'd be better off without him. I don't think that's really the case, and the town can also be representative of just the world and society in general.
After Parasite, we have the song Free Ride, and this, I guess, it seems to be about him moving in with maybe his parents, but just someone else, essentially, not being able to pay for his own place, I guess.
He was financially struggling. This is certainly a cry for help. He's calling out for help, in this case a free ride, and nobody's even hearing him or kind of recognizing his cries.
After that, we have Harvest Breed, very short track. I don't know, in the one verse he does say quite a bit. It seems to be like about his like inability to like, I'd say, reach out and find people to talk to about save him from his fall.
You can read the articles and stories about him, but he seemed to be lacking a support network, really. Or either he just wasn't actively going out and finding a support network that he needed. This is another track where he feels like he's falling. He feels like he's going downhill. His mental state is deteriorating, and he needs someone there. And at the end, he's ready for Harvest Breed, which is most likely a symbol for death.
Finally, we have From the Morning, which I think is a very nice end to this record.
It's kind of optimistic. He's talking on this track about the beauty of nature, and that part is uplifting, but he also seems to be saying that nature would be better without humans, probably in a more specific nature, himself in it. Also a bit of a sad thought. Nature is this kind of free thing. It's kind of idealistic. Life and humanity is... He compares it to a game, and it's a repetition of all these meaningless tasks. Drake just kind of wants to go back to nature.
I guess overall, I think this is a very beautiful, poetic record. It's very interesting how Nick deals or portrays these ideas of depression and his social alienation. I think it's very beautiful. It's very well put. I don't really like the song No, and there's maybe a couple songs that I think the instrumentation isn't quite as good as some of my favorites, but I still think this is a pretty amazing record. Yeah, I'd give this record like an 8.5 to a 9 out of 10. Probably a 9.
I'd have to agree. The poetry and the beauty of this album is definitely one of its strongest aspects as a record. Additionally, this album manages to say a lot in not a lot of time, and there's a lot of very powerful emotions presented here. His lyricism is quite good. Given the context of this album, it's very, very unfortunate, the state he was in and his unfortunate death. It's very sad. It's very depressing. Again, though, it's incredibly beautiful. I'd give it like a 9 to a 9.5 out of 10. Probably more towards a 9, though. There's just lots of really great stuff on this record.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this episode of Deep Dive into the Archive. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, and also consider subscribing to our channel. We have plenty more episodes of Deep Dive into the Archive that you can check out. You can also check out our other series like Album Swap. Tell us your thoughts about the album in the comments below, and I hope you have a great day.